Elvis Merzlikins is mad, and the Blue Jackets don't really seem to give a flip how he feels. What will become of the 29-year-old goaltender? We'll discuss today on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden. My co-host, Jay Foster, is out today, but he will be back in due time. We are here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before I get going, I want to say thank you to everydayers for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're free on YouTube, and we're free on the SiriusXM app. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app, use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It's also a great app for daily fantasy hockey if you like to indulge in that. But the big news is that Elvis is the news. Elvis is the news because he clearly is very upset. The Blue Jackets don't really seem to trust him as the number one goaltender right now. And I don't know if that is actually true or not. I'm still, as I've put out there on social media, I'm extremely confused as a Blue Jackets fan as to what is going on with this team. Because clearly the Blue Jackets' plan right now is to play Daniil Tarasov, which I think is completely fair. Play Daniil Tarasov. He hasn't played hockey in 8 or 9 months. Get him some NHL reps because he is your goalie of the future. Whether he's number 1 or number 2, he is going to be on this team for the next several seasons. So I have no problem with that. The problem is that Elvis isn't even getting to sit on the bench as the number 2. He is being healthy scratched, and clearly he feels like there's a disagreement with where he should be at, whether he should be on the bench, whether he should be between the pipes, or whether he should be at home. The Blue Jackets have treated him since December 29th, which was the last time that he played in a game. Mind you, he left that game early because I believe that was a win against the Leafs. That was a 6-5 overtime win against the Leafs. Elvis had let up 2 goals in that first period, and he was taken out because he was sick. He got ill between the first and the second period. Something that's kind of happened to him a lot, whether that's fair or unfair. He gets sick a lot. He doesn't really get hurt, which is a good thing, but he gets sick, and that happened again. And since then, the Blue Jackets have not played him. That seems kind of crazy, considering the fact that he's a dude who's making $5.5 million this year, which is good for the 11th highest paid goaltender in the league. Has fans scratching their heads saying, what is the organization doing with Elvis Merzlikins? Has the rest of the NHL, really, NHL media, Elliot Friedman is out there talking about Elvis Merzlikins, and the rest of the league is going to talk about him because coming up with the trade deadline, teams are going to be hunting for goalies. Now, since he's been sitting out, I think it is absolutely fair to speculate that the Blue Jackets are planning on moving him because, one, he's improved from last year to this year. His goals against average was terrible last year. He was a bottom 5 goalie in the NHL. That's just a fact. Whether you like it or not, he had a bad season, and I think a lot of Blue Jackets fans have promptly erased the way that he played last year from their minds because it was bad. It was very bad. Now, if you look at the previous 3 years, before that, because this is year 5 with him, last year was year 4, the previous 3 years, he was actually okay. Like, he wasn't great, but he definitely wasn't bad. And that's first year, especially his rookie year where his rookie year really was a microcosm of what was foreshadowing for what the rest of his career was going to look like, because everybody remembers the 5 shutouts that he had. Everybody remembers him being up for the Calder, losing it to Cale Makar, some dude named Cale Makar who plays for Colorado. Everybody remembers that year, but I think we forget that he lost his first 8 starts in the NHL, and that was shocking. That really was shocking, because the Blue Jackets didn't sign Sergei Bobrovsky going into that season. Not only probably because Sergei Bobrovsky, first of all, he wanted out of Columbus. I would imagine Sergei was ready to move on after, how long was he in Columbus? 8 years, I think. Bobrovsky was in Columbus for a long time. I'm going to have that incorrect, I'm sure, but he had re-signed with Columbus. He was ready to move on. And the Blue Jackets likely were not going to pay him the $10 million that he's getting right now. Sergei, the second highest paid goalie in the league, making $500,000 less per year than Carey Price. So, okay, Blue Jackets were not going to give him that money. But this whole Elvis thing definitely has me thinking maybe they should have. Maybe they should have not put all their chips in on Artemi Panarin, which was kind of a joke. We all knew that. They offered him $13 million a year the night before free agency hit. And I think we already knew that he was not going to re-sign. And maybe they should have just gone all in on Sergei Bobrovsky. And maybe Yarmo did. Maybe honestly he did. I don't know. But, the Blue Jackets' most recent game was against the Winnipeg Jets. And I do believe that Connor Hellebuck is the reason why that team is as high up in the NHL standings as they are. And the reason why they're going to be competing for a Stanley Cup this year. I believe that with Florida as well. What if he would have stayed? It's kind of those things. And anyway, that's a huge side tangent to what the situation is with the Blue Jackets, where you have a goalie who is kind of just up and down with his play. And like I said, this year has been significantly better for Elvis Merzlikins than last year, but that wasn't going to take much. And he's looked better though too. It's not, he was all over the place last year. He definitely was not himself. And I know some people would probably credit the goalie coach change going from Manny to Nicholas Backstrom, but I don't think that's the truth. I think a couple things. I do think maybe it is the goalie coach. Maybe it's the re-upping on defense with bringing in Severson and Provorov. That definitely helped. But it's and having Juracek in here this year. But it's also I think Elvis has just been more locked in this year, which I think is why he is so upset with what's going on. And let me actually just give you the timeline as to what's going on, because he hasn't been playing since December 29th. People have been wondering what's going on. Is he still sick? Is he dealing with are the Blue Jackets going to trade him? People were kind of leaning towards, I think I was starting to lean towards maybe the Blue Jackets are going to trade him. And then boom, Thursday evening, Brian Hedger drops on us that he talked to Pascal Vincent. And this is from Brian Hedger with the Columbus Dispatch. This is on his Twitter. You guys can find this yourself. But he said, Pascal Vincent says, Tarasov is getting the start over Merzlikins for evaluation and development purposes because they think he can be a number one. As for Elvis, he's not playing. Understandably, as for Elvis, he's not happy about not playing. Understandably, he declined interview requests that day, may speak tomorrow. Come around Friday, Elvis Merzlikins said he has not requested a trade, but that he and the Blue Jackets have agreed to find a new scenario for him. He said, quote, I love Columbus. I love these guys. I grew up here, end quote. And then he also said, quote, I'm not a backup goaltender, end quote. So a couple things there. One, I understand where he's coming from, okay? And he elaborated on that. He said he's not a backup goaltender, but that's the way that he views himself. And for anybody that has had the chance to be around Elvis, which I got to do a couple of times back when I worked for a radio station here in Columbus. I got to go down in the locker room and I got to hear from him firsthand. So do you guys, obviously, because those media clips are available to you guys. But I remember, I can't remember what year it was exactly, but there was some time in the last 5 years where he had been playing very, very bad. And he's always just been he's been so candid and so honest with how he feels he's at as a professional, very similar to Patrick Laine, honestly. But he's always been so honest with where he's at as a professional and how his play has been. And there was one time and he loves talking to the media. I think he does. Like, I think it's somewhat therapeutic for him. And I think the fans love to hear from him because he is so honest, and he's a sweetheart, man. He's a nice guy. Like, he comes across that way. He's a likable guy, but he definitely has I don't want to say a personality issue because it's not that, but it seems like he is not the type of guy to bow down to authority when he feels like authority is not treating him right. And this is something the Blue Jackets have dealt with for years with guys like, Pierre-Luc Dubois, like, for example. That was more of a player to coach kind of thing. But this isn't unfamiliar territory for the Blue Jackets and for, John Davidson and Yarmo and heck, Pascal Vincent was on the coaching staff the last few seasons. Like, what is going on? Why is there a disconnect? Why isn't Elvis okay just sitting at home and just enjoying some family time while the team figures out who they have in their lineup and just explaining, like, hey, the number one goaltender position, the number one goaltender term is a very fluid, loose term. There's a number one goaltender. The goalie that's playing in net that night, he's the number one goaltender. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like, you're gonna play the hot hand. That's an old adage in the sport of hockey. You play who's ever hot. And right now, Daniil Tarasov is hot. He's had some bad games, and in fact, if you look at the stats, Elvis has a better goals against average this year than Daniil Tarasov does. Elvis is around 3.25. Daniil is around 3.8. But Daniil's had some very good games. I think Daniil's ups this year have been better than Elvis's ups. His downs have been down. But again, he's played 7 games in the last 9 months. So it's like they're trying to see what they have in him. And the fact that Elvis is not down with that plan says something about Elvis, or it says something about CBJ leadership right now. And Pascal Vincent, who was asked, what is going on with your former number one goaltender? And he says, former? Who are you talking about? And then proceeds to know exactly who he's talking about. So it's like they're avoiding some of these hard conversations. And for a fan, it's frustrating. For the team, it's got to be even more frustrating. For Elvis, it's got to be just making him mad. And clearly, things are not going well. These two teams are Elvis and the Blue Jackets are heading towards a breakup, which is unfortunate. And I want to hit on more on this late yet. I got to hit a quick break here because I'm up against it, but lots of stuff going on and a lot of concerning things with this team right now. We'll get into more of it next on Locked On Blue Jackets. Next thing I want to tell you guys about is the Sleeper app, because Sleeper is a phenomenal place for you to join in on the fun, and that fun is daily fantasy hockey. We are at the halfway point of the year. The Jackets, there's been some highs, there's been some lows, obviously some more lows than highs, but Columbus is a very fun team to watch, and they've been cold lately. But if you play daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. I would pick guys right now like Nikita Kucherov is very hot, Connor McDavid and the Oilers. They're on a 9-game winning streak. So pick those guys. And all you got to do is pick over or under on certain Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus or minus or more in any given game. And you can have a chance. If you get 8, you have to go perfect. You have to go 8 corrections on these projections, and you can win 100 times your bet on Sleeper. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleepers. So start paying attention and nail your picks, and you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDON NHL, LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleepers. Terms of use for details and location availability. All right, back here talking about the Blue Jackets and Elvis Merzlikins, because he's again, he was trying to be clear. He has not requested a trade. He does not want to leave the Blue Jackets. All he really wants is to be the number one goaltender. And I think it's worth asking the question, does he deserve to be the number one goaltender? And I think he still does, guys. I hate to admit it, because I think two things are true. I think one, he still deserves to be the number one goaltender, as fugazi of a title as that is, because like I said, you play the hot hand. The fact that these players who are high performing athletes, and they didn't get there without being having an abundance of confidence. Anyone who's had the chance to be around a guy like that knows that these are the most professional athletes, are the most confident people in the world. Like, there's nobody more confident, and you guys know that from listening to interviews. Like, they're cocky. That's the way that they carry themselves, and that is no different from what Elvis Merzlikins is doing when he says, "I'm not a backup goaltender." I kind of wish he wasn't doing that, obviously, not just for the vibes of the team, which I don't think changed really from him saying that. I don't think Daniil Tarasov is like, oh gosh, this guy doesn't think he's a backup goaltender. I don't think any goalie believes they should be a backup goaltender. But I do get worried for trade purposes, because I don't know, as a GM, if you really choose to go after a guy like this, because he's saying he's not a backup goaltender. I don't know. Like, there's teams out there that need goaltenders. Like the Oilers need a goaltender. The Flames need a goaltender. The Carolina Hurricanes need a goaltender. The Maple Leafs need a goaltender. But is he going to be okay if on a certain night he's not the starter? And for 5 years, really, he has been. Like, for 5 years, he's been okay when he sat behind Jonas Korpisalo. So I don't know where this is coming from with him. I mean, it definitely is coming from the fact that he was not on the bench the last several games. They had Spencer Martin on the bench, which shows me is like the Blue Jackets are completely mishandling their assets right now. They're mishandling their personnel. And I did see on social media, somebody asked, I don't know who it was. It was either Aaron Portzline, Brian Hedger, or Jeff Swoboda, guys that all do a fantastic job covering the team. One of them asked, is it the incident that happened against the Washington Capitals, which I think was just a couple days before Christmas, where he got mad at Tom Wilson because Tom Wilson got checked into his crease in the overtime period. Merzlikins then just unleashed on Tom Wilson, started hitting him with sucker punches, and eventually caused the Jackets a penalty. And when you go down 4-on-3 in a 3-on-3 period, you're done. You're pretty much done. And that cost the Blue Jackets a game at a time where maybe they, as an organization, felt like they could still go after the playoffs. And he apologized to the team. He apologized to the team after that. He took responsibility. It was Tom Wilson getting under someone's skin. Like, can we really blame Elvis for Tom Wilson getting under his skin? Tom Wilson was apparently doing dirty crap to Elvis that entire game. So no, I don't think I honestly, I think I'm Team Elvis in this whole situation, even though he's eccentric and he'll say exactly how he feels, which a lot of times sounds arrogant and cocky. That's kind of okay with me, because that's the dude he's been his entire career. And it's not like he's the Jordan Binnington level of cocky where he just comes across as a total, whatever word you want to use to describe a person like that. I can't say certain things here, but you know the word or words. There's multiple you could use for a guy like Jordan Binnington. And I don't think Elvis is that. I think Elvis is just a fiery, competitive guy who feels the heat and the pressure of being a number one goaltender. But it's good to know that he is willing to fight for himself and stick up for himself. And I honestly, if there's any way to rekindle the fire between Columbus and Elvis, I would love to see that done because I do think Elvis is a good goalie, and I think he was just getting better this year, right? He was better this year than he was last year. It wasn't hard to do because he was so bad last year, but he was starting to look like himself again, and he's only 29, and you're paying him $5.5 million a year. Could that money be spent elsewhere? Sure, but you just don't come across players like Elvis Merzlikins anymore. And maybe you do, but if this really is the end for the Columbus Blue Jackets and Elvis, I don't know if I'd put him. He'd be just floating without thinking of all the names right away. And this is definitely going to be a summer topic for Jay and I. Without thinking about the names, I think he's probably in the top 5 of best goaltenders the Blue Jackets have ever had. I'm thinking of Steve Mason, obviously, because he won the Calder that first year. Obviously, he was bad after that. I obviously got to give credit to Sergei Bobrovsky, 2 Vezinas, Jonas Korpisalo. And then I don't know where you go after that. I mean, Curtis McElhinney was good, but was he great? Pascal Leclerc was good, but was he great? I think Elvis probably is in the top 5 of best CBJ goalies of all time. And he's definitely been fun. He's definitely been entertaining. He's a fiery guy. He's a fiery guy. And if this is the way the Blue Jackets are treating him, then I'm disappointed in the Blue Jackets. I'm disappointed in the front office. I'm disappointed with the coach. Pascal Vincent was totally just deflecting all types of questions today, and not even in a fun way. If you're going to deflect questions, just say, I'm not answering that. Just be a total, again, find the word. You guys know the word. Be a Bill Belichick. Be a, Greg Popovich. I know Pascal Vincent. Be a Torts. I mean, come on. Learn from the GOAT at being hated, being mad at the media. I'd love to see Pascal Vincent get a little chippy like that. I still do like Pascal Vincent. I think he's done a good job with the team this year, but this is a bad job. And I don't know if it's all his fault. This could be Yarmo's fault. This could be John Davidson's fault. This could be Nicholas Backstrom's fault. But Pascal Vincent doesn't seem to be helping the situation by not having Elvis at least on the bench for some of these games. It's okay to give a guy rest. Obviously, he knows Danilo is a very good goalie. I'm sure he's happy for Danilo to be getting starts again, but just don't healthy scratch him for Spencer Martin, okay? Don't do that. Stop doing that, all right? Oh, gosh. Whatever this new scenario is, again, I want to be clear. He has not requested a trade, which finding a new scenario for him definitely does seem like a trade. But if the new scenario is just that he gets to put on the CBJ jersey every night, then just make sure that happens, okay? Because that's a very easy thing to do. It's okay if he's just sitting on the bench, okay? And he will be on the bench tonight against the Seattle Kraken, which I did not forget about this game. And I honestly am terrified of this game because, again, the Blue Jackets are playing another buzzsaw from the Western Conference, and the Kraken. Yeah, we'll talk about the Seattle Kraken and move on from Elvis. We'll do that next here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Before I do that, I want to take a moment to thank the everydayers. You, the everydayer, you guys are special. We really appreciate you guys. You guys do such great jobs putting your input in the comments. I see you guys. I love you guys. I think you give great input. It shows that this fan base through down times can be so passionate. And I appreciate that a lot because that makes me feel like what I'm doing serves a purpose for somebody. So continue to comment, continue to interact with us. You can find me on social media at HaydenH971. You can find Jay on social media at _JAKOBFRSTER. And the show is on there at LO_Blue Jackets. Interact with the show. Send us emails. We read the thing at the end of every show. I'll do it again at the end of this one once I talk about the Kraken game. But yeah, we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And also, if you're here for the first time, hit subscribe on our YouTube because we post almost every day when Jay and I aren't having arguments over what time we're going to record because he lives 6 hours away. God bless that man who is far away from all this right now, but still he covers the team better, almost as good as the guys that literally have a media pass that are in the locker room every day. Jay does a great job. I'm very grateful to have him as a co-host, but we are also very grateful to have you guys as the everydayer. So thank you. And now let's move on. Talk about the Kraken. I'm a little bit sad talking about this one, I will admit, because I was hoping by now the Blue Jackets would have done more to get back into the playoff race. I know every single episode, guys, I talk about the playoff race. It is all in vain. This team is not going to make the playoffs. I know I say that pretty much every time too, but the NHL is set up for bad teams to still be in the hunt. You get a point every time you lose in overtime. That's something unique to the NHL. And the Blue Jackets have had a lot of overtime losses this year. They've had 9 overtime losses. Only the Islanders have more in the NHL. Only the Isles have more, but the Isles have gotten more wins too. They're sitting in 3rd place in the Metro. That's who you're chasing now, I guess, and you're 13 back. You're 13 points back. So it's over. It's over. It's dead. It's good for this team to just start losing. I don't know if it's good. Obviously, I want my team to win every single game they play in. But if you start losing, then that's fine. You're going to hopefully just keep plummeting down the standings. I don't think anybody's going to catch the Sharks who are dead last, maybe the Blackhawks. And that's the thing, too. And my father-in-law was just talking to me about this because he's a big Elvis fan. Not only because of he likes hockey and he likes the goalie, but he just likes Elvis, like Elvis Presley. And that's one thing I've loved about Elvis Merzlikins, is that he just has so much swag. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, his name's Elvis. He kind of looks like Elvis. He's cool. He wears cool pads. He says cool things in interviews. He's a fun guy. Like, I don't know what to say, man. I would be disappointed if his career ended in Columbus. If his time in Columbus ended. I think he's going to have a flourishing career with a better team in front of him. But looking at this Blue Jackets and Kraken game, 7:00 tonight, Seattle. Again, they've won 8 games in a row. But I'm looking at FanDuel right now, and the Blue Jackets are only plus 140 on the money line, which is pretty surprising because I don't know if anybody can beat the Seattle Kraken right now. And I think the Seattle Kraken really put themselves on the map as a legitimate playoff contender, and because of that win that they had, honestly, in that Winter Classic game, which was very cool, very cool. I was obviously very salty that 2 expansion franchises that came into the league after the Blue Jackets got to play in an outdoor game, something that us Blue Jackets fans have obviously been trying to get. But that game was cool, okay? That game was cool, and T-Mobile Park out in Seattle is less than half the size of the Horseshoe. So the logistics with getting a game there obviously worked a lot better. I thought the uniforms were very cool. My God, the red that they added to their jerseys for that game was so awesome, and just it was a very good presentation, and they put themselves on the map with that win over the defending Cup champs, Joe Decord, who is the first goalie in the Winter Classic to pitch a shutout. He's on a tear right now. He has been their starting goaltender for the last 8 games that they've won now. And again, they are just shooting up the Western Conference standings. They are still a spot out of the wild card, so they have some work to do. But they're going to be a very motivated team coming into this game. There's no doubt about it. And they have some great players. They have, obviously, Matty Beniers, Oliver Bjorkstrand, who hilarious video with him talking to Ron Hextall about him being selected for the All-Star game. He was like, I was going to go on vacation. I was kind of totally caught off guard by this. That is like, does anybody have worse luck as far as planning life events than Oliver Bjorkstrand? Do you guys remember when he just got married in Ohio and Cleveland to his wife, and like they were getting ready to settle down in Ohio, and like a day after his wedding or something like that, he got traded to Seattle. Like this guy just constantly has the worst luck when it comes to his life being flipped upside down. But dang, man, I'm missing Oliver Bjorkstrand. I'm missing Alexander Wenberg. Both those guys playing for the team right now, doing great. Alexander Wenberg's doing okay. He's got 17 points in 41 games. He's got 7 goals this year. Oliver Bjorkstrand, 31 points in 41 games. But, you know, again, they're great all over the place. Eli Tolvanen, he's a, you know, young Finnish player who is just really exciting to watch. And this is another team too that has done a lot with veteran guys mixed with the younger players, and they've been just great to watch. I think they have the best away jerseys in the league. I love their white uniforms. I just think those colors absolutely pop. And I just think the NHL has done a really great job, as jealous as I am of their whole arena, of their whole, you know, getting a Winter Classic in year 3 of existing or whatever it is. Like, I'm jealous of all, but you know, and they got some good defensemen too. Like, this is going to be a very tough challenge for the Blue Jackets. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they went another game getting shut out. I have a very low scoring game in this one. I'm going to take the Kraken in a 3-2 win. And if the Blue Jackets get 2 goals, I'd be very surprised, because this team's good. They got great defensemen. They got Vince Dunn, who's got 34 points in 41 games. Jamie Oleksiak, who is just a bruiser. He's a big dude. And, you know, I'd love to see Jamie Oleksiak, who stands at 6'7", go up against Eric Branson. That would be a fun fight. Talk about 2 big dudes. You know, the bigger you are, the harder you fall. I'm kind of rooting for that, to be honest. I'm sorry that I'm a guy that roots for hockey fights. That's kind of like the people that root for wrecks at NASCAR. Obviously a very dangerous thing, but hey, I like cool things, okay? What, can you really get mad at me? These guys are getting paid millions of dollars, all right? They signed up for this, okay? If they drop, you don't drop the gloves unless you drop the gloves. So, but yeah, Jamie Oleksiak, Eric Branson fight would definitely get my juices going. But you know what, get my juices going more than anything would be a Blue Jackets win. I think I'm beyond the point of saying that a win against the Kraken would kickstart this whole comeback to making the playoffs. I'm kind of beyond that. I guess there's a sliver of hope that something like that happens, but for the most part, your team's 8-11-4 at home. Like, they're not they had their chances. They had their chances to get back in this thing against bad teams. The schedule only gets harder coming up as they make their West Coast trip. They're going to run into teams like the Vancouver Canucks, who are 28-11 this year. They're going to play the Oilers, who have won 9 in a row. Like, it's not going to be good, okay? But, hey, I can take the little wins as they come, and beating the Kraken would definitely be a very fun way to, I don't know, just make for a fun Saturday night in the Arena District. Okay, can I just get one of those? Can I get a fun Saturday night in the Arena District? Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow to break down the Blue Jackets. Hopefully a win. If not, it'll be a loss. I'm sure tons of crap will happen in this game. There's always seems to be tons of stuff that happen in a Blue Jackets game. But thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Again, Jay and I will be back tomorrow together. We are going to make time zones not matter. He's just going to power through the way that he does because he's a beast. But again, you can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. Jay is on there at _JAKOBFORSTER. And the show is on there at LO_Blue Jackets. Please hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can actually direct those to us at LockedOnBlueJackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.